The alien warrior stood at the center of the grand arena, her tall figure shining under the alien sun. She was known across her world as the undefeated champion, a warrior who had crushed countless foes in battle and duel. Her armor, polished silver with deep markings of honor, caught the light like fire. The crowd of her people filled the stands, roaring her name, chanting for yet another victory. For the warrior, this was more than sport. It was pride, tradition, and proof of her strength. She had been raised to believe that power was the only language worth speaking. Mercy was weakness. Defeat was shame. Victory was the only truth. When the humans arrived on her world, she looked at them with scorn. To her, they were fragile creatures, soft-skinned, too reliant on their machines and weapons. They spoke of peace, of alliance, of respect, but she did not respect words. She respected strength, and so she raised her voice before the gathered crowd. "Bring me your strongest human," she declared. Her voice was sharp, commanding, carried by the winds across the arena. "Let us see if your kind has the right to stand as equals. Let us see if you are worthy of respect." The crowd roared in agreement. They wanted to see the humans tested. They wanted to see the so-called explorers crushed. For generations, no one had stood against their champion and lived with honor. The human delegation stood in silence. Their faces were uneasy. They were soldiers, yes, but trained for war with weapons, not duels with alien champions. None of them carried the towering strength of the warrior before them. For a long moment, no one moved. The alien warrior's eyes burned with challenge, daring them to respond. She wanted to see fear in their eyes. She wanted to see hesitation. Then, from among them, a single man stepped forward. He was not the tallest, not the strongest. He wore no shining armor, carried no weapon. His clothing was simple, his body lean, his hands empty. Yet there was something about the way he walked, calm, steady, without hurry, that caught the warrior's attention. He did not flinch under the stares of the alien crowd. He did not shrink before her towering figure. Instead, he stopped just a few steps away, lifted his eyes and bowed his head slightly. "I accept your duel," he said softly. The arena exploded with laughter. The aliens howled in amusement, pointing at the fragile human. Was this a joke? Was this their strongest? A creature without claws, without armor, without the body of a warrior? The alien warrior narrowed her eyes. She had expected someone larger, someone armored in steel, someone who at least appeared dangerous. But this man, he looked ordinary, plain. Yet in his gaze she saw something that unsettled her. There was no fear, no trembling. "Only calm, you?" she asked with disbelief. "You think you can stand against me?" The human's expression did not change. "I will fight," he answered simply. His tone was quiet but unshaken. For the first time, the warrior felt something stir inside her chest. It was not fear. It was not respect. Not yet, it was curiosity. Why would a fragile human step forward against her? Why would he risk certain defeat? The drums of the arena began to pound. The air grew heavy with tension. The alien crowd shouted for the duel to begin, eager for the sight of their champion crushing the strange human into the ground. The warrior lifted her spear, the long weapon that had ended countless challengers. She tightened her grip, ready to strike. Her eyes locked onto the human before her, searching for the flicker of fear she always found in her opponents. But there was none. The man only stood quietly, breathing slowly, his eyes never leaving hers. It was as if he carried a secret strength unseen by anyone else. And in that moment, though she would never admit it, the alien warrior felt something she had not felt in years. Doubt. The human soldier stepped forward, his calm presence standing in stark contrast to the roaring alien crowd. Every eye in the arena was on him, some filled with disbelief, others with laughter. The alien warrior, towering and powerful, expected fear. She expected hesitation, but instead she saw only resolve, a quiet strength that unsettled her in ways she had never felt. She lifted her spear high, the weapon shining like a silver lightning bolt. Every muscle in her body was coiled for attack. She had fought countless challengers, each one seeking to prove their worth, each one broken by her speed, her power, her relentless precision. But this human, he did not flinch. He did not panic. The crowd waited with bated breath as she lunged forward, her spear cutting through the air. The force of her strike would have shattered bones, ended lives. Yet the human moved with a surprising grace. A small sidestep, a subtle twist, and the spear passed mere inches from him. The alien warrior blinked. He was fast. not with brute strength, but with a fluid, almost unnatural timing. Every movement seemed measured, every stance balanced. He was not like the other weak humans she had dismissed before. "You are faster than I thought," she said, her voice carrying both surprise and irritation. The human's gaze did not waver. "I watch, I learn. I respect you enough to move carefully." The alien laughed, sharp and cold. "Respect? You speak of respect as you dodge my spear like a child." He only shook his head, silent, his eyes locked on hers. The tension between them crackled like the energy in a storm. She had expected this to be a display of her power, a simple victory for her pride. Instead, she felt her chest tighten, her movements less certain. Strike after strike, she attacked with everything she had. Every thrust of her spear was meant to overpower, to intimidate, to end the duel quickly. But the human reacted with patience, dodging and deflecting without a hint of fear. He moved only enough to survive, never to attack. Minutes passed. The alien warrior began to feel her strength waver. Her arms burned. Her lungs ached. Every strike, every movement demanded more than she had expected. And yet this human did not tire. He seemed to draw energy from his calmness, from the quiet confidence that she could not understand. Finally, in a rare pause, she lowered her spear slightly and studied him. He was breathing evenly. His eyes were steady, full of determination. "Why do you not fight?" she demanded, frustration coloring her words. "Why do you not strike back?" "Because the point is not to destroy," he answered softly. "It is to endure, to learn, to understand you." The alien warrior froze. Those words, so simple yet so strange, stirred something inside her. She had never heard an opponent speak this way. She had never met a being who did not seek to kill her to prove themselves. Her mind raced. Could it be that this human's strength was not in his body, but in his mind, in his will? The drums of the arena sounded louder, pounding like thunder. The crowd grew restless, unsure whether to cheer or whisper in awe. Their champion, the strongest among them, was being tested in a way no one had imagined. The alien warrior raised her spear again, her eyes blazing with renewed determination. She would finish this quickly. She would show the human his place. She would reclaim the certainty of her power, but deep inside, a tiny seed of doubt had been planted. For the first time, she began to question what strength truly meant. The alien warrior's spear cut through the air with deadly speed. The human stood his ground, his stance firm, his eyes unwavering. He was smaller, weaker in appearance, but there was a calmness about him that unnerved her. It was as if he knew exactly what she would do before she did it. She struck again and again, each attack faster, sharper, more precise. The crowd gasped as her weapon sang through the air. Sparks flew as it struck the stone floor, leaving shallow grooves and cracks. Each strike carried the weight of her pride, the burden of countless victories. But the human did not fall. He did not panic. He moved with an almost unnatural rhythm, stepping aside, twisting, adjusting, and always watching. He did not strike, he did not attack. He only endured. "Why do you not fight?" she shouted, her voice echoing with both anger and confusion. "Because strength is not only about striking," he answered calmly. "It is about standing, about knowing yourself and your opponent. I respect you enough to endure." The alien warrior froze mid-strike. Endure? Respect? These were words she had never considered in battle. In her world, strength meant dominance. Weakness was crushed. Honor was earned through victory. Yet here was a human who had faced her power without raising a hand to attack. Her chest heaved, her muscles burning. She had never felt this before. Her strikes began to slow, hesitation creeping into her movements. She struck harder, trying to force the issue, to regain control. But the human's calm persisted like a rock in a storm, unmoved, unyielding. A flicker of doubt sparked in her mind. Could it be that this human was stronger than she imagined? Not with arms, not with speed, but with something else, something she could not name. She lunged, her spear aimed to strike decisively. The human moved. Not quickly, not aggressively, but precisely. A small shift of his body, a step to the side, and her spear's tip grazed past him. He reached forward, his hand brushing her chest plate, and with a skillful twist swept her legs from under her. The crowd fell silent. Never had anyone thrown their champion down so easily. Never had anyone defied the rules of strength so completely. The mighty alien warrior lay on the ground, her breath caught in shock. Her spear inches away. The human stepped back, breathing steady, hands lowered. He looked at her, not with triumph, not with malice, but with quiet respect. "Do you understand now?" he asked softly. Strength is not only in the body. True strength is patience, control, and understanding. The alien warrior's chest heaved. Her pride burned, but beneath it something deeper stirred, a mixture of awe, disbelief, and a strange, growing respect. She had faced the strongest humans in battle before, and she had crushed them. But this one had defeated her without striking with anger. For the first time in her life, the warrior felt the weight of humility. She realized that victory was not always about domination. That strength could come in forms she had never imagined. Her eyes met his, wide and unblinking. You have defeated me, she whispered. No, he replied, shaking his head gently. I have shown you another kind of strength, one you may not have known existed, and in that instant the arena, the crowd, the noise all faded away. There was only the human, calm and unwavering, and the alien warrior, struggling to comprehend a power beyond mere muscle. The alien warrior lay on the cold stone floor of the arena, her chest heaving, her limbs trembling. Never before had she been thrown down so completely. Her spear lay beside her, untouched by the human's hands, a symbol of her halted pride. Silence filled the arena. The crowd, once roaring and laughing at what they thought would be a simple display of dominance, now stared in stunned disbelief. She looked up at him, the human. His posture was calm, almost serene, his chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. There was no triumph in his eyes, no cruelty, only understanding. And that understanding struck her harder than any weapon ever could. Her mind raced, trying to comprehend what had happened. Why do you not strike me? She demanded, her voice shaking, though not from fear, from disbelief, from the realization that she had faced a strength unlike any she had known. Because, he said softly, true strength is not in breaking others. It is in knowing when to stop. It is in endurance, patience, and respect. The alien warrior's four eyes widened. Respect. A concept she had been taught to consider irrelevant. Power was earned in the arena, through blood and victory, not words. Yet here it was, offered to her by a human she had expected to crush with ease. She tried to rise, her body protesting. Every muscle screamed in pain. Every joint burned. But her spirit, though wounded in pride, was alive. She struggled to understand the human's calm confidence. You could have ended me. One strike and I would be broken. He shook his head. And you would have been no wiser, no stronger. Strength without understanding is meaningless. You fought with skill, with honor. I only reflected that back to you. For the first time she felt something entirely new. Awe. Not of herself, not of power, but of a human being who could match her not by brute force, but by the mind, by spirit. Her chest heaved with conflicting emotions. Anger at being humbled, fear at her own vulnerability, and a stirring respect that shook the foundations of her pride. The crowd watched, silent now, sensing the gravity of the moment. Some of the younger aliens whispered to each other, confused, inspired, unable to fully grasp the concept. But the elders nodded knowingly. They had seen many duels, many champions fall, but never in this way. Finally, the alien warrior pushed herself up, trembling but determined. She looked the human in the eyes. For the first time, she lowered her weapon voluntarily. I accept your strength, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I give you my respect. The human inclined his head slightly, a faint, almost imperceptible smile on his lips. Then we understand each other, he said. She could not speak further. Her body ached, but it was nothing compared to the storm within her. All her life she had believed that strength was measured in how easily you could dominate, in how quickly you could crush your opponent. And now a human had shown her that strength could be patience, wisdom, and control. That mercy was not weakness, but power. For a long moment, they simply stood there. Two warriors from different worlds, understanding each other in a way words could barely capture. The alien warrior's pride had been challenged, but in that challenge she had grown. She had glimpsed a truth she had never imagined. That strength was not a measure of how many enemies you could defeat, but of how you faced them, how you treated them, and how you controlled yourself. The arena remained silent, the tension thick as stone. Slowly, the alien warrior reached out and lifted her hand in a gesture of acknowledgement. The human mirrored it. It was not a victory of one over the other. It was a recognition, a connection that transcended species, culture, and expectation. In that instant, the duel was no longer about pride or dominance. It was about understanding, About the awakening of a warrior who had believed herself unbeatable, only to discover that true strength could be far more profound than she had ever imagined. And as the sun cast long shadows across the arena floor, both the human and the alien warrior realized that something extraordinary had just occurred, a moment that would echo across generations, shaping the future of two worlds. The alien warrior slowly rose, brushing the dust from her silver armor. Every movement ached, but her mind was even heavier. She had been defeated, not by brute force alone, but by something she had never valued, never considered: patience, control, and understanding. The human soldier stood before her calm, his posture relaxed yet filled with quiet strength. For the first time she felt the sharp sting of humility. Her chest burned, not from exertion, but from the realization that her life had been built on a single incomplete idea of power. Every duel, every victory, every moment of pride suddenly seemed smaller compared to what she had just witnessed. A fragile human had taught her more about true strength than her countless battles ever had. The crowd was silent now, stunned into reflection. The younger warriors whispered to one another, unsure whether to cheer or retreat. The elders, however, watched knowingly, their faces etched with the understanding that a lesson far greater than mere victory had just taken place. The warrior's four eyes followed the human, studying him. "All my life," she admitted, her voice trembling, "I believed that strength meant dominance, that to win was everything, that mercy was weakness, but you have shown me that I was wrong." The human inclined his head, his expression gentle. "Strength is many things," he said quietly. "Sometimes it is in endurance. Sometimes it is in restraint. Sometimes it is in knowing how to rise without breaking others. You are strong because you fight with honor. I only reflected that back to you." She felt a strange warmth spread through her chest. It was respect mingled with awe, tinged with relief. Her pride had been broken, yes, but in that break something far more important had grown: understanding. For the first time she saw that power without wisdom was hollow. She had fought countless battles to prove herself, yet this single duel had taught her more than years of victories ever could. I wish I had known this sooner," she whispered. Her voice shook, but it was not fear. It was honesty, vulnerability. And in her world, admitting such a thing was nearly unheard of. Yet she felt compelled to acknowledge the human who had changed her perspective in a single moment. The human smiled faintly. "It is never too late to learn," he replied. "You have the courage to see what many never do. That is what makes you truly strong." The alien warrior lowered her gaze, feeling the weight of her previous arrogance lift. She could feel the judgment of the crowd, but it no longer mattered. She had discovered a strength beyond her own, one that transcended muscle, armor, and weapons. A strength born of wisdom, patience, and the courage to respect another being. Slowly, deliberately, she bowed her head to him. The gesture was more than politeness. It was acknowledgement, acceptance, a promise that she would carry this lesson forward, not just for herself, but for her people. "To you," she said, her voice steady now, filled with emotion, "I give my respect." The human soldier inclined his head in return. "Then we are equals," he said simply. The alien warrior's chest swelled with emotion. Not pride, not triumph, but something deeper, a recognition that strength could exist in forms she had never imagined. The lessons of her youth, the victories she had treasured, all paled in comparison to the wisdom she had gained in these few minutes. Around them, the crowd slowly began to stir. The laughter and jeering of earlier had vanished, replaced by thoughtful silence. Even the younger aliens began to understand that what they had witnessed was not just a duel, but a revelation. And in that moment, the alien warrior knew that she had been changed forever. She was still the same champion, still a fierce warrior, but now her spirit carried something new: humility, respect, understanding. She had been defeated, yes, but she had risen stronger than ever in ways that mattered far more than victory alone. The human soldier, standing quietly, seemed to sense the shift. He had not sought praise nor glory, yet he had inspired a change not just in her but in the hearts of all who watched. The alien warrior raised her head, her four eyes shining with determination and a new clarity. Pride broken, yes, but her spirit, now transformed, burned brighter than ever. She had learned that true strength was not only about winning, it was about how you faced your opponent, how you carried yourself in defeat, and how you respected those who challenged you. And that lesson would not be forgotten. The arena had fallen silent. The echoes of the duel still lingered in the air like a faint hum of electricity after a storm. The alien warrior stood tall, her silver armor now scuffed and dusty, her chest still heaving with the weight of exertion and revelation. Around her the crowd whispered, some in disbelief, some in admiration, all captivated by what they had just witnessed. For the first time, the aliens were forced to see humans not as fragile, weak creatures, but as beings capable of wisdom, patience, and extraordinary courage. The human soldier had not crushed their champion, yet he had done something far greater. He had opened their eyes. The alien warrior turned her gaze inward, reflecting on everything she had known about strength, pride, and honor. Every battle she had fought, every victory she had claimed, suddenly seemed incomplete. She had measured herself against others only in terms of raw power. She had never understood the quiet strength that came from restraint, from calmness, from the courage to face a foe without hatred. The human soldier, standing a few feet away, said nothing. He did not seek applause or recognition. He had fought with purpose, not to humiliate or dominate, but to teach a lesson that words alone could never convey. His calm presence radiated a quiet authority that required no weapons, no armor, no boastful shouts. Slowly, the alien warrior approached him. Each step felt heavier than the last, not from fatigue, but from the weight of her thoughts. She stopped before him and bowed deeply, a gesture she had rarely made in her life. "I have been proud," she said, her voice trembling slightly. "Too proud. I measured strength in ways I no longer believe are true. Today, you have shown me something I could not have learned alone." The human inclined his head respectfully. "You are not weak," he said. "You are strong, and that strength is now greater because you have learned. That is what matters." Her chest swelled with a mix of pride and humility, pride in the courage she had shown, humility in the realization that even the strongest among her people could grow, could learn, could change. It was a feeling she had never expected, an unfamiliar yet powerful emotion that burned brighter than any victory she had ever celebrated. The crowd began to stir, slowly at first, then louder. Some cheered, not for the human or for the alien warrior, but for the lesson that had unfolded before them. Young aliens, inspired by what they had seen, began to whisper to each other, their eyes wide with newfound understanding. Even the elders, wise from years of observing countless battles, nodded knowingly. They had seen many duels, but never one that carried such a profound lesson. The alien warrior turned to face the crowd. Her voice, when she spoke, was strong but tinged with emotion. "Today," she said, "we have learned that strength is more than force. It is patience. It is understanding. It is respect. We have seen what true courage looks like. Let us remember it." Her words spread through the crowd like fire, igniting thoughts and feelings that had long been dormant. Humans, once underestimated, were now regarded with admiration. They were not merely survivors of war. They were beings capable of inspiring growth, even in the proudest and strongest of warriors. The human soldier remained quiet, yet he felt the impact of what had occurred. He had not fought to win in the traditional sense, but he had done something more enduring. He had changed perspectives, hearts, and perhaps even the future of two worlds. The alien warrior's eyes met his again, filled with a newfound respect that went beyond words. "Thank you," she said softly. "You have given me more than victory or defeat. You have given me understanding." He nodded, a gentle acknowledgement. No words were needed beyond that. As the sun dipped lower, casting long golden shadows across the arena, the warrior looked out at the crowd, at her people, at the world she thought she knew. Everything had shifted in a few short minutes. Strength had a new meaning now. Power had a new measure. And she, the undefeated champion, had been forever changed. In that moment, she realized that the duel was only the beginning. The lessons would ripple outward, shaping hearts and minds, teaching that courage, respect, and understanding could be stronger than any weapon or armor. And somewhere deep inside she smiled, knowing that her spirit, and perhaps the spirit of her people, would never be the same again. Years passed, but the duel in the alien arena was never forgotten. The story spread across worlds, whispered by travelers, told by elders, and recounted by young warriors who longed to understand true strength. The human soldier's actions had left a mark far greater than any battle could. He had not just fought. He had inspired, changed hearts, and reshaped the way a civilization thought about power and honor. The alien warrior, once proud and unyielding, had grown into a leader. Her victories no longer relied solely on force but on wisdom and understanding. She carried the memory of that day as a guide, teaching her people that strength without respect was hollow. She would tell them strength was patience, endurance, and the courage to honor others, even in the heat of battle. Whenever she spoke of the human, she did so with reverence, calling him not a conqueror but a teacher. He showed me that the measure of a warrior is not in how many foes we defeat, she would say, but in how we face them, how we treat them, and how we carry ourselves in every challenge. The human soldier returned to his world quietly, unnoticed by most, yet the ripple of his actions followed him like a shadow. His duel had been brief, but its impact was timeless. Stories of his courage, patience, and respect reached soldiers, scholars, and diplomats alike. He became an emblem of human strength, not the strength of weapons, but of spirit. Across the alien world, young warriors began to train differently. They still learned combat, speed, and endurance, but now they also learned to wait, to watch, to understand their opponents. They practiced restraint and empathy, inspired by the human who had bested their champion without raising a hand in anger. The society itself began to change, growing less reckless, more thoughtful, and more united with their human allies. The alien warrior remembered that moment vividly, even as she rose to lead her people. She remembered the calm eyes of the human, the steady patience in his stance, the lesson that had been stronger than any blow. Every time she trained a young warrior, she told them, "Strength is nothing without understanding. Power is nothing without respect. Courage is measured not by victory alone, but by the heart that faces the challenge." In quiet moments, she would sometimes think of the human soldier, wondering where he had gone, what he was doing, whether he understood the change he had sparked. She smiled at the thought that a single human, with nothing but will and honor, could transform an entire world's perspective. The human, far away, never sought recognition, yet he noticed subtle changes. Reports reached him of alien societies learning to respect, cooperating rather than conquering, treating humans and their own kind with fairness. Small steps at first, then larger ones. He felt no pride, only quiet satisfaction. The universe had shifted and he had played a part. And in that shift, both worlds learned something fundamental, that true strength is not in the force of a strike or the weight of a weapon. It is in restraint. It is in patience. It is in knowing when to rise and when to show mercy. It is in seeing the humanity or the alienness in another and choosing to honor it. Generations later, children of both species reenacted the duel, not as a story of victory or defeat, but as a story of understanding. They spoke of courage, of patience, of the respect that can bridge worlds. The tale became legend, the human soldier a symbol, the alien warrior a guide, and the lesson eternal. The alien warrior, standing once more in the arena, now older and wiser, looked out across the crowd of young faces. Her heart swelled with hope. The duel had ended, but its legacy would never fade. The human soldier had stunned her once with his calm and strength of spirit. But his greatest gift was not a moment, it was a lifetime of change. And she knew with certainty that the world and the universe itself was stronger for it. Because in that duel the outcome had stunned her. It had stunned the crowd. It had stunned generations. But most of all, it had revealed a truth that would never be forgotten, that humanity, with all its courage, patience, and understanding, could shine brighter than any weapon, stronger than any force, and more enduring than any pride. And that truth, the alien warrior realized, was the greatest victory of all.